In a normal video game, you are either a valiant hero, saving the universe from destruction, or a racing god dominating the track. But what if a game's absolute only objective is to walk out your door and commit senseless, indiscriminate slaughter against unarmed, innocent civilians? It is exactly like someone took the darkest, horrific, real-world criminal files and turned them into a completely digital stress relief toy. We view video games as completely harmless, pixelated escapism. We hand controllers to children, blindly trusting the virtual world is insulated. We assume it is insulated by a glowing television screen. But when developers bypass traditional storytelling and actively code digital atrocities, the code itself becomes highly radioactive and dangerous. Today, we are opening the sealed servers of globally banned video games, exploring the forbidden software that shattered the boundaries of human decency. It triggered massive political crises, forcing entire nations to pull the plug. Entering Level 1 of this digital underworld, we confront a terrible game. It is built entirely on pure, unadulterated nihilism. In 2015, a Polish studio released a game titled Hatred. There was no heroic backstory, no fantasy realm, and no moral justification. You play as a nameless psychopath who is simply disgusted by humanity. The entire gameplay loop is designed around walking into peaceful suburban neighborhoods, walking into police stations and train cars to brutally execute terrified civilians. You execute begging civilians in high definition, monochromatic gore. It is like taking the most traumatic broadcast of a real mass shooting and repackaging it into a playable arcade cabinet for teenagers. The backlash was instantaneous and explosive, universally condemned as a digital hate crime. Twitch immediately banned the game from ever being broadcast on its platform. It became only the second game in history to receive an adults-only rating. It received this rating purely for its extreme violence. It proved that when a game strips away fantasy and mirrors real fears, the entertainment value instantly rots into genuine terror. Plunging into Level 2, the violence evolves from a suburban shooting spree. It evolves into a highly intimate and interactive snuff film. In 2003, Rockstar Games released a very dark game called Manhunt. You play as a death row inmate forced into a sadistic reality show. A wealthy, unseen director speaks into your earpiece to give you orders, ordering you to execute gang members using plastic bags and glass shards. The more gruesome and prolonged the execution, the higher your score. It is like being kidnapped, handed a weapon, and forced to direct a movie. An illegal underground torture tape where human suffering is the only currency. The digital brutality bled into reality in 2004 with a brutal murder. The British media heavily linked the game to the murder of a boy. The young boy's killer was reportedly obsessed with playing the game. The ensuing moral panic was so severe that entire countries banned the game. New Zealand, Australia, and Germany completely banned the title from their countries. They legally classified the plastic disc as highly objectionable and restricted material. It exposed the chilling reality of gamifying sadistic torture for points. It crosses a psychological boundary that society simply refuses to tolerate. As we descend to Level 3, the horror shifts from fictional slaughter. It shifts to the agonizing, interactive recreation of real historical trauma. In 2004, a Scottish development team released JFK Reloaded. It was actively marketed as a historical documentary simulation. But the gameplay was a singular, sickening task for the player. You play as the sniper, Lee Harvey Oswald, sitting in the depository. Your goal is to aim down the rifle scope and assassinate the president. You are literally graded on a leaderboard for your bullet trajectory, graded on how accurately it matches the real-life historical autopsy reports. It is exactly like turning the devastating tragedy of the 11th of September into a game, a competitive flight simulator, complete with a high-score mechanic. The game allowed players to replay a national trauma from the murderer's perspective. American politicians and grieving family members were completely outraged by this. The creators argued it was an educational tool to prove the lone gunman theory, but society saw it for what it truly was: a grotesque monetization of an unhealed national wound, turning a presidential assassination into a cheap carnival shooting gallery. The final bedrock of this forbidden code reveals what happens with independent developers. An indie developer forces the player to step into the shoes of terrorists, the most infamous domestic terrorists in modern history. In 2005, an indie developer released Super Columbine Massacre RPG. It used the charming visual style of classic Super Nintendo role-playing games. The game meticulously recreates the 1999 Columbine High School shooting. Players control the two real-life teenage shooters, navigating the school halls, planting bombs, and executing their classmates in turn-based combat. The game even used actual quotes from the killer's personal journals. It is like dressing up a horrific, real-world massacre in the cute, nostalgic, pixelated graphics of a Pokémon adventure. The creator claimed it was a profound artistic critique on bullying and media violence. However, a real-world shooter murdered a student at Dawson College in 2006. Investigators discovered he was a massive fan of the video game. The simulation was immediately blacklisted from all gaming festivals. It was universally condemned by the families of the victims. We treat video games as digital playgrounds to escape reality, assuming that code and pixels cannot physically harm us. But these globally banned programs expose a rotting, uncomfortable truth about interactive media. When we hold a controller, we are no longer passive observers in a theater. We are active participants pulling the digital trigger. Next time you boot up a game to escape reality, remember the forbidden software. Remember the software locked away in digital vaults. Entertainment might be a virtual illusion, but the psychological boundaries they cross and the real-world outrage they provoke are absolutely real.